Never argue with a travelling salesman. Back in 1612, up in the wild hills of Lancashire, people weren't scared of just thieves or bandits. They were terrified of witches. Not storybook witches with broomsticks and cauldrons, but ordinary people accused of making shady deals with the devil and cursing their neighbours. So how did the tale of the Pendle Witches, one of England's biggest notorious witch trials, start? With something as simple as pins. Yes, pins. Our story begins on the 18th of March 1612. A peddler, what we now know as a travelling salesman, was walking along a road near Colne in Lancashire when he was stopped by a young beggar called Alizon Device. Alizon asked the peddler if she could have some pins. For some reason, he refused, which is a strange response considering it was pretty much his job to sell stuff. Anyhow, not long after, the man collapsed in agony. He swore that a giant black dog appeared at Alizon's side and that she'd cursed him on the spot. Now the chances are he just had a spot of food poisoning. Let's face it, 1600s cooking wasn't winning any Michelin stars, but in those days, stomach cramps were all the proof you needed. Alizon was accused of witchcraft. Under pressure, she panicked. She blamed her own grandmother, Elizabeth Southerns, better known as Old Demdike. This wasn't a great move, but Demdike already had a bit of a spooky reputation for charms and curses, so the locals were quick to nod along. Then came the family feud. Alizon's lot, the Demdikes, pointed fingers at their rivals, the Chattoxes. The Chattoxes fired right back. Suddenly, every dead cow, every sour pint of milk, every neighbourly grudge was chalked up to witchcraft. It was less real magic and more Lancashire's messiest episode of a repetitive and very dull soap opera. And it's at this point the authorities swooped in, eager to prove themselves in a kingdom already obsessed with witchcraft, courtesy of King James I and his little bedtime reading book, Demonology. So the accused were rounded up and hauled off to Lancaster Castle. The trial was messy. The evidence was less than paper thin because the star witness was Alizon's 9-year-old sister, Jeanette. She climbed onto a stool in court and pointed at her own family, calling them witches, and the jury loved it. Old Demdike died in her cell before facing trial, but 10 others weren't so lucky. They were all hanged that summer. And so one man's dodgy dinner and one girl's desperate attempt to save herself turned into one of the most infamous witch hunts in English history. This was the story of the Pendle Witches.